It was the kind of cold that crept into your bones, an early winter wind slicing through the cracks of an old tired home on the edge of a forgotten neighborhood. Alina sat on the ripped sofa, hugging her knees to her chest, watching the steam rise from the chipped mug her mother had just handed her. The silence between them was sharp, heavier than the old curtains suffocating the daylight from the room. Her mother, Gloria, stood across from her, arms folded, jaw tight, eyes cold. "You're 22, she said, her voice as flat as the floorboards beneath them. "You're not a child anymore." Alina blinked slowly. "And you think? This is the way, marrying a man who sleeps on a sidewalk." "He's not just a homeless man," Gloria snapped, with more bitterness than reason. "He's a man, and men, real ones, don't come around for girls who just sit in this house all day playing innocent." Alina's heart thudded against her ribs. She had never been touched, never kissed, never even held a boy's hand. That kind of intimacy was something she secretly dreamed of, not something she wanted stolen by her mother's desperation or madness. "This isn't normal," she whispered, staring down at the mug in her lap. "You're trying to sell me off." Gloria let out a laugh, dry, unkind. "I'm trying to save you. You think the world is going to care about a virgin girl with no job, no skills, and no ambition? At least this way you'll have someone, and maybe he'll finally stop sleeping behind our garbage cans." Alina closed her eyes. She knew who Gloria meant. His name was Marcus, and he'd been hovering around their street for the past 3 weeks, bearded, dirty, silent. Sometimes he helped carry groceries in for old Miss Ramirez. Sometimes he picked trash from their cans. He always looked like he was disappearing into himself. She'd never spoken to him, never even heard his voice. "Why him?" Alina asked, voice shaking. "Out of everyone, why him?" Gloria shrugged. "Because he said yes." Alina's breath caught. "You already asked him?" "Yesterday." She felt sick. The world was spinning sideways. "You had no right." "I had every right," Gloria barked, stepping forward. Her face was flushed now, red with frustration or guilt. Alina couldn't tell which. "You think this house pays for itself? You think I'm going to keep busting my back for a daughter who does nothing, who brings nothing? This man," he said, "he'll work. He said he'll stay. That's more than your father ever did." That name, father, was a ghost in the walls. Gloria never spoke of him unless she was angry. Alina didn't know much, except that he'd left when she was 6 and never came back. "You want me to marry a man who lives in filth, who can't even feed himself?" Alina said, trying to hold back tears. "Is that how little I mean to you?" Gloria didn't answer right away. Her mouth opened, but the words stayed buried. Then she looked away and muttered, "He used to be someone. Before the streets, before the drinking. He had a life, and maybe you two could have something like that again." Alina stared at her. Her mother wasn't just being cruel, she was being delusional, or maybe just desperate. So desperately lonely and tired that even a broken man seemed like salvation. "I haven't even talked to him," Alina whispered. Gloria gave a weak smile. "You'll talk tomorrow, he's coming to dinner." The table was set with cheap plastic plates and a flickering candle that leaned too far left. Gloria had poured water into wine glasses to make the scene look fancier than it was. Alina sat stiffly in her faded pink dress, hands folded tightly in her lap. She had brushed her hair 3 times. Her lips were dry, bitten. Her eyes kept flicking to the clock on the wall. He was late, or maybe he wasn't. She didn't know what was worse, him not showing up and being scolded by her mother, or him walking through that door and changing her life forever. Gloria was stirring the soup like it owed her money. "You better not make a face when he eats. He's not used to home-cooked meals." "I'm not hungry," Alina murmured. "Well, pretend." Just as the silence got thick enough to choke on, there was a knock at the door. 3 soft taps. Not confident, not rushed, just tired. Alina's whole body tensed. Gloria wiped her hands on her apron and walked over, pausing before opening the door like she was trying to compose herself into someone else, someone who could sell a dream that didn't exist. And then the door opened. Marcus stood there in a tattered army green coat, his boots crusted in dried mud, his hair pulled back into a messy knot. He looked thinner than she remembered, with hollow cheeks and eyes that didn't rest on anything, for too long. But the strangest part was this: he was clean. Not perfect, but cleaner than the last time she saw him picking bottles from the alley, like he'd tried. "Evening," he said, voice low and raspy. Gloria lit up like she was greeting royalty. Come in, come in. We've been waiting." He stepped inside cautiously, like the floor might bite. He looked around with slow eyes, taking in the fake flowers on the counter, the dusty family photo near the window, and finally, Alina. Their eyes met. She felt exposed. He gave her a small nod, respectful, like he knew she hadn't signed up for this either. "Marcus, this is my daughter, Alina," Gloria said, her voice just a touch too cheery. "Alina, this is Marcus." "Hi," Alina said, barely louder than a whisper. He scratched the back of his neck. "Hi." They sat at the table like strangers forced into a strange play, reading lines no one wanted to say. Gloria talked enough for everyone. She laughed too hard, served too much soup, complimented Marcus on things that didn't make sense. "I told Alina about your time in construction," she said, pouring more water into Marcus's glass. "She needs a man who can build something. She's always been quiet, but she's loyal." Alina wanted to disappear. Her eyes stayed down. Watching her spoon swirl in the bowl, Marcus looked at her for a long moment. "I used to build decks and porches before the injury." Gloria paused. "Injury?" He nodded. "Wrist shattered. Drunk driver hit me while I was unloading lumber from the truck. Boss let me go a month later. Couldn't lift right anymore." There was a beat of silence. Real silence. Honest. Brutal. Alina looked up at him. His face wasn't soft, it wasn't handsome, but it was real, weathered, human. "How long have you been on the street?" she asked before she realized she was speaking. He blinked. "About 6 years, on and off. I do odd jobs when I can. Sometimes people let me sleep in their garages. Other times I got the sky and a blanket." "That's not living," Gloria interrupted. "That's surviving, and he deserves better." Marcus didn't argue, just stared into his glass like he was talking to it instead. Alina pushed her bowl away. "Why did you say yes?" He looked at her now, not at her dress or her face, just her. "Because your mom told me you were kind," he said slowly. "And I haven't known kind in a long, long time." Gloria smiled like a deal had been struck, but Alina just stared at him, trying to read past the beard, the scar on his cheek, the guarded tone in his voice. Dinner ended with a weak goodbye. Marcus didn't try to shake her hand or touch her. He just said thank you and left as quietly as he came. Gloria started clearing dishes with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He'll be back tomorrow. Wants to talk more." Alina stood, their hands clenched. "And what if I say no?" Gloria dropped a plate into the sink. "Then you better start packing, because this house won't be yours forever." That night, Alina didn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the pipes hum in the walls, the creak of her mother's footsteps pacing in the kitchen, the occasional howl of wind pushing against the weak window panes. Her room, once a small sanctuary filled with second-hand books and faded dreams, now felt like a cage. Every object, her stuffed bear from childhood, the cracked mirror, the peeling posters, looked like witnesses to something cruel unfolding. She didn't cry, not because she wasn't scared, but because the fear had sunk too deep for tears. It had hardened into something quiet, something still. The next morning, Gloria was already dressed and humming in the kitchen, cracking eggs like it was any other day. Alina didn't say a word. She just sat at the table, staring at her food. "He said he'll come around noon," Gloria chirped, placing toast on her plate. "You should wear something soft. Men like soft." Alina didn't answer. "I know you think I'm the villain," Gloria went on, voice tightening. "But the world doesn't give women like us choices. Not real ones." Alina looked up. "You had choices. You chose to stay angry. You chose to sell me." Gloria slammed the pan down. "You think this is selling? You don't know what being sold feels like, girl. I was 17 when my stepfather put his hands on me, and my mother did nothing. Nothing. So don't talk to me about choices." Alina stared at her mother, really stared. For the first time, she didn't just see the woman who controlled her life. She saw the tired lines around her eyes, the bitterness cracked into her voice, the ghost of a woman who once probably dreamed of something better too. But understanding her didn't make it right. It didn't make it okay. At noon, there was a knock on the door again. 3 gentle taps. Marcus stood there in the same coat, but this time he held a small bouquet of wildflowers. Dandelions, clovers, tiny purple blooms, freshly picked from some patch of nowhere. "I figured you didn't like roses," he said to Alina, awkwardly holding them out. She hesitated before taking them. "Thank you." They sat outside on the porch. The winter air was sharp, but the sun had cracked through the clouds. For the first time they were alone. No Gloria. No fake smiles. Just silence, and a cup of lukewarm tea between them. "I didn't agree to marry you," Alina said, staring ahead. "I know. I don't love you. I wouldn't expect you to." "Then why are you still here?" He paused. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped. And maybe I thought, maybe if I stayed long enough we could figure out how to get out. Together." Alina looked at him, brow furrowed. "You want to escape too?" He let out a slow breath, his eyes soft but tired. "Every day." They sat there for a while, not speaking, just breathing in the quiet. Then she asked the question she'd been avoiding. "What happened to you? Before all this?" He scratched his beard, looked off into the distance. "I had a wife once. Her name was Naomi. We had a baby girl on the way. I was working construction, good money, saving up to buy a house. What happened?" He swallowed. "Fire, apartment caught. I was out on night shift. They didn't make it. The landlord had ignored the complaints about the old wiring. I got a payout from the lawsuit, but nothing could fix what burned." Alina felt her chest tighten. "I'm sorry." He nodded slowly. "Me too." Gloria peeked through the window like a hawk, watching, hoping, waiting for the fairy tale to start. But this wasn't a love story. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. Marcus stood up. "You don't owe me anything, Alina. Not your heart, not your name. But if you want to run, I'll run with you. If you want to fight, I'll fight beside you. Just don't let her decide your life." She blinked, stunned by the gentleness in his voice. He wasn't asking for anything, not even hope, just choice. And that, after all this time, was the one thing she didn't know how to use. The wind had picked up by late afternoon, pushing broken leaves down the empty sidewalk like ghosts refusing to rest. Inside the house, the air was thick with silence. Alina sat at the kitchen table again, this time without her mother's permission. She didn't ask. She didn't apologize. The bouquet Marcus brought was in a cracked glass jar near the sink. It looked out of place, too alive for a house like this. When Gloria came in from the backyard, her heels clicked louder than usual, her lips pressed in a forced smile. "You two seemed cozy," she said lightly, grabbing a cup from the cabinet. "Anything I should know?" Alina didn't flinch. "He told me he lost his wife and his baby. In a fire." Gloria paused mid-pour. "And you believe that? He's not a liar?" "Oh, honey," Gloria laughed coldly. "Everybody lies, especially men with nothing to lose." Alina looked her dead in the eye. "And what about you?" The cup clattered in the sink. Gloria's smile vanished like smoke. "Excuse me? You lie. Every single day. You act like you're helping me, but you're just trying to erase your mistakes through me." Gloria's eyes narrowed. "Watch your mouth." "I used to think you were protecting me," Alina continued, her voice shaking but steady. "But you've just been trapping me. And now you want to pass me off to someone else like you're handing down a coat that doesn't fit." Gloria moved fast. Too fast. The slap wasn't hard enough to break skin, but it landed. Not just on Alina's cheek, but somewhere deeper. Somewhere old, somewhere already bruised. They both stood there, breathing heavy. "You think you're better than me," Gloria hissed. "You think you know the world? I kept you alive. I gave you everything I didn't have. You should be thanking me." "For what?" Alina whispered. "For making me feel like love is something I have to earn by suffering?" Gloria's face twisted. "You ungrateful little—" There was a knock at the door, neither of them moved. Another knock, firmer this time. Then his voice, calm, even. "Alina, you all right?" She wiped her face and walked to the door, heart racing. She opened it slowly. Marcus stood there holding a small canvas bag. "I brought stew. It's not great, but it's hot." He noticed her red cheek. His eyes didn't ask questions, but they darkened. Gloria hovered in the background like a storm cloud, but Alina stepped outside and closed the door behind her. They sat on the porch again. She held the warm container in her lap, like it was a lifeline. "She hit you?" Marcus finally asked, soft. Alina didn't answer, just nodded once. He looked down at his hands, then back at her. "I can get us out of here, not far, but somewhere better, safer." "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," he said. "I know what it feels like to be owned, and I know you don't deserve it." She stared at him, unsure whether to cry or laugh. "You keep talking like we're in a war." He tilted his head. "Aren't we?" Later that night, after Gloria went to sleep, heavily medicated as usual, Alina sat on the floor of her room, backpack open, fingers trembling. She hadn't packed in years, not even during all those nights she'd imagined running. But this time it felt real, terrifyingly real. She packed light, a sweater, socks, 2 books, toothbrush, a faded photo of her and her father before he vanished. And one of her mother, not for sentiment but as a reminder, a warning. Marcus was waiting outside by the alley. No words were spoken, just a shared look. They walked for blocks without talking, just steps in rhythm. 2 souls who didn't belong anywhere anymore. At a gas station on the edge of town, Marcus bought her a hot chocolate with the last of his crumpled bills. She sipped it slowly, the warmth spreading through her for the first time in days. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. He looked up at the stars like they held a map. "I know a place. Abandoned cabin near a lake, maybe an hour out. I stayed there last winter. It's quiet." "You've done this before?" "Run?" "Yeah." They walked on. Behind them, Gloria would eventually wake up to an empty room and the beginning of the end. The air near the lake was colder, sharper. It smelled like wet pine and silence. The cabin Marcus had mentioned wasn't much. Wooden planks worn thin by time, 1 broken window taped up with plastic, and a door that moaned like it remembered every person who had ever run here to hide. Still, it was more than Alina had known in a long time. Inside there was a dusty cot, a rusted stove, and a few cans of soup stacked in a crooked tower on the counter. Marcus lit a small fire in the metal heater, and soon the space filled with warmth that didn't come from anything artificial. They didn't say much that first night. Alina curled up in the corner with a blanket he gave her, her body still buzzing from adrenaline, guilt, and relief. She didn't miss the house. She didn't even miss her bed. What haunted her now was the look her mother might have worn when she saw the empty room. The rage, the disbelief. Gloria had always acted like Alina belonged to her, like she was a project to be finished, a life, to be molded into something more obedient than free. But she had left. She had walked out, and it both terrified and empowered her. Marcus sat across from her, staring into the flames. The light made the lines on his face deeper, more human. "I used to come here with Naomi," he said quietly. "We found it one summer while driving back from a funeral. She made me promise to fix it up one day. She wanted it to be our off-grid spot." Alina hugged her knees. "And now, it's just yours." He looked at her, then away. "Not anymore." There was no romance in his voice, no expectation, just presence. The next morning, Alina woke to the smell of coffee, instant, burnt, but familiar. Marcus was outside, splitting firewood with one arm, using a small hatchet with careful precision. He worked slow, mindful. She watched through the broken window, wondering how someone who had lost so much could still move like he was protecting something. She made them toast over the fire with stale bread and butter. They ate in silence, sharing little glances that meant more than words. Later that afternoon, she saw it, the car. A black sedan, crawling slowly down the dirt path through The trees. Its headlights were off. The engine low. It stopped about 100 feet from the cabin, just far enough to stay in shadow. Alina's blood went cold. She rushed to the door. "Marcus, someone's here." He looked up from the back of the cabin, face hardening instantly. "Stay inside." "No, wait. What if it's her?" He didn't answer. He walked toward the tree line, every step measured. The car door opened and out stepped a woman in a long coat and red heels sinking into the mud. Gloria. She looked like a creature out of place, like someone who had crawled into the woods with perfume, still clinging to her collar and judgment in her eyes. Alina froze. She had followed them. Gloria didn't speak right away. She just stood there, arms crossed, eyes locked on Marcus like he'd stolen her favorite possession. Then, "You really think you're going to build a life with my daughter? Out here in the woods, you can't even build a roof." Marcus didn't move. "She left, that's her choice." Gloria laughed, bitter and sharp. "She's a child." "I'm 22, Alina said, stepping out from behind the door, "and I made the decision myself." Gloria turned, eyes narrowing. "And look at you, no makeup, in a cabin, sleeping on the floor, this what freedom feels like." Alina stepped closer, voice trembling but firm. "Yes, it feels like air." "Air?" Gloria barked a laugh. "You're breathing because I kept you alive. I fed you. I paid the bills. I cleaned your messes when you didn't even know you were making them." Marcus stepped forward now. "You're not here for her. You're here because you lost control." Gloria's eyes burned. "You don't know me." "No," he said, "but I know what it looks like when someone thinks love means ownership." She turned to Alina one last time, voice low and sharp. "You'll come back, when he disappoints you, when reality hits. And when you do, don't expect open arms." Alina didn't respond. She just stared, and Gloria, heels muddy and pride fractured, climbed back into the car and drove off without another word. The silence she left behind was louder than her voice had ever been. Marcus stood beside Alina, watching the dust settle. "She'll be back," he said. Alina shook her head slowly. "No, I won't let her." The days after Gloria's visit were quiet, almost suspiciously so. Alina spent most mornings collecting firewood, her hands rougher now, her muscles learning the rhythm of a life without walls. In the afternoons, she read. Marcus had found an old box of books in the attic, water-stained novels, survival guides, a broken dictionary. She devoured them like she was making up for years of silence, and at night they talked. Nothing romantic, just stories, pieces of who they had been before the world broke them open. "I used to draw," Alina confessed one evening, sitting on the porch steps wrapped in an oversized flannel. "In secret. I'd hide my sketches under my mattress. Mom found them once and called them a waste of time." Marcus looked up from the small radio he'd been fiddling with. "You should draw again. I forgot how." "Then remember." She didn't answer, but that night she found a pencil stub and started tracing lines in the margins of a book cover. Her hands were shaky at first, but the images came: dark forests, a girl with hollow eyes, and a cabin with firelight in the window. She was remembering, but just as Alina was rediscovering parts of herself, Marcus began to retreat into silence. Again. He'd disappear for hours, wandering through the woods with that distant look in his eyes, like he was chasing ghosts no one else could see. One evening she followed him. She stayed quiet, careful, her boots crunching softly over damp pine needles. He didn't notice her at first. He was kneeling beside a small wooden cross, tucked into a clearing, a name carved with a pocket knife: Naomi Brooks. 1991-2014. Alina froze. This was more than memory. It was grief given form. She stepped out from behind the tree, and Marcus turned, startled at first, then strangely calm. "You buried her here?" she asked. He nodded. "Her ashes. I brought them after the payout. I couldn't leave her in the city." They stood in silence. "She would have liked you," he said eventually. "She liked women who didn't shrink." Alina swallowed the knot in her throat. "I didn't used to be that woman. You are now." That night, the air turned colder. Something in the wind had shifted, like it carried news they couldn't hear yet. And then it happened. The next morning, Alina went to the lake to wash up, only to find footprints in the mud. Fresh. Not hers. Not Marcus's. Boot prints, big, heavy. She ran back, her heart pounding. "Marcus!" she called, breath ragged. "Someone's been near the lake, watching." He was already grabbing the old shotgun from the cabin wall. "Stay inside. Lock the door. Don't open it until I knock twice, then once." "Wait, Marcus, what if it's—" He was gone before she could finish. She locked the door. One knock, two knocks, then one. She opened it. Marcus stood there, jaw clenched, eyes wild. "There's a man camped about half a mile out. Tent, gear, binoculars, he's been watching us." Alina felt the blood drain from her face. "Is it someone you know?" Marcus didn't answer right away. "Then, no, but I know his type." "What do you mean?" "He's not just some hiker, he's too quiet, too calculated, and he left no scent of food, just equipment. That's military or ex-cop behavior." Alina blinked. "You think—" "We're being hunted." Marcus didn't blink. "I think someone sent him." She swallowed hard. "My mother." "Maybe. Or someone else. I've pissed off a few people in my past." That night, Marcus sat by the window with the shotgun across his lap. Alina barely slept. Every creak, every gust of wind felt like a signal. Something was coming, and this time running wouldn't be enough. The forest was too quiet the next morning. Even the birds had stopped singing. Alina stepped outside with a knife tucked in her pocket, not because she knew how to use it, but because fear felt easier to hold when it had a blade. Marcus hadn't slept. His eyes were darker than usual, rimmed with worry, but his movements were calm, deliberate. He was building something, sharpening stakes from branches, stacking rocks at the edge of the trail. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice hushed. "Traps," he said without looking up. "Slow him down if he tries to get close." "Do you know who he is yet?" Marcus hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "His name's Dale. I used to know him back when I worked security on construction sites in Atlanta. He wasn't a cop, but he acted like one. The type who loved hurting people and calling it justice." Alina's stomach twisted. "And you think my mum hired him?" "She could have. Or maybe he just found us. Some of these guys, they keep lists of people who vanish, especially if they think those people owe them something." Alina backed up slowly, her voice cracking. "What do you owe him?" Marcus finally looked at her. "I saw him beat a man half to death in a parking lot once. Homeless guy stole food from the job site. Dale dragged him behind a truck and broke his ribs with a steel rod." "And you stopped him?" "No. I just watched." Alina stared, stunned. "I was scared," Marcus whispered, "and tired, and maybe I was starting to become like him." She turned away, heart pounding. "I left the job that night, packed my truck and drove until it ran out of gas. I never told anyone, not even Naomi. I thought if I disappeared, I could kill the version of me that stood still and let it happen." Alina didn't know what to say. The man she thought was broken was revealing the cracks that he had carved himself. "You think I'm safe to be around?" she said bitterly. "You're just as messed up as my mother." "I never lied to you," Marcus replied. "No, but you let me think you were better." He didn't argue. He didn't need to. That afternoon the silence broke, with a gunshot, a loud, sharp crack that echoed through the trees like a thunderclap. Alina dropped to the floor inside the cabin, her breath catching. Marcus darted in after her, pulling her to the back room. "That was a warning," he said. "He knows we know he's here. Then what do? We give him something he doesn't expect." Alina blinked. "Like what?" "Me." "No," she said instantly, grabbing his arm. "No. You're not going out there." "I'm not going to die," he said calmly. "But if I talk to him, if I can distract him, maybe you can run, get help. I'm not leaving you." His eyes softened, then hardened again. "If he takes me, he'll leave you alone. You're not what he wants." "And what does he want?" "Power," Marcus said. "Control. Men like Dale only feel strong when someone else is crawling." Alina shook her head. "No, I'm not running, not again." Before he could stop her, she grabbed the shotgun and stood. And then, another gunshot. But this time closer. They both froze. Footsteps, breaking twigs, heavy breathing. Then a voice, raspy, mocking. "Come out, Marcus. I just want to talk." Marcus cursed under his breath and motioned for Alina to stay low. But she didn't. She stood by the door and screamed, "If you come near this place, I'll blow your fucking head off." Silence. Then laughter. "You got fire, girl. Didn't expect that." Marcus grabbed her shoulder. "He'll kill. Coyote." But Alina's voice didn't shake. "Let him try." The laughter stopped. More footsteps, retreating. Marcus stared at her, stunned. "You just told a man with a rifle to die." "I'm done being afraid," she said. He smiled for the first time in days, but they both knew this wasn't over. Dale was retreating, but not for good. He was planning something final. They didn't sleep that night. The fire in the cabin crackled low, casting flickering shadows on the walls like restless spirits. Outside, the wind howled and the trees whispered warnings Alina couldn't quite understand. Marcus sat with the shotgun across his lap, his jaw clenched, every muscle tight. Alina sat beside him, not out of fear, but solidarity. Her hands were steady now. Her heart was tired but no longer trembling. They weren't prey anymore. At sunrise, the woods went silent again. The birds didn't return, but Dale did. He stepped out from the tree line just after dawn, wearing a worn black jacket and carrying a scoped rifle like it was just an accessory. His beard was patchy. His smile was worse. Alina watched through the cracked window. "He's here." Marcus nodded. "I'll go, buy you time." "No," she said. "We do this together." He didn't argue this time. They stepped out of the cabin slowly, Marcus in front, Alina holding the old hunting knife behind her back. Dale raised his hands mockingly. "Look at this. A prince and his princess defending a pile of rot and sticks." Marcus kept his voice even. "Leave now. Nobody has to die." Dale chuckled. "Too late. You think you get to walk away from everything? You've done. You think you can crawl into the woods with some little girl and just forget the rest?" Alina stepped forward. "I'm not a little girl." Dale's eyes flicked to her. "You're not much of anything. Just a broken thing pretending to be brave." She didn't blink. "And you're a coward with a gun." Dale's face twitched. "You don't know who I am." "No," Marcus said, stepping closer, "but I know what you are. A man who hurts because he never learned how to heal." Dale raised the rifle. "And you're a man who ran." Marcus didn't flinch. "And I'll run again, but not from you." Everything stopped. For a heartbeat, the wind paused. The birds, the trees, the world itself seemed to inhale. Then, a shot. Loud. Deafening. Alina dropped to her knees, ears ringing. Smoke in the air. But it wasn't Marcus who fell. It was Dale. He stumbled backward, clutching his side. Another figure emerged from the woods behind him. Gloria. Holding a pistol in both hands, her arms shaking like twigs in a storm. Alina gasped. "Mom?" Gloria didn't speak. She just stood there, staring at Dale like she was seeing the man behind every nightmare. "I followed him," she said finally. "I paid him to scare you. I didn't think he'd try to kill you." Dale groaned, collapsing. Marcus rushed forward, kicking the rifle away from Dale's reach. "He's alive for now." Gloria dropped the gun. "I just wanted her to come back," she whispered. "She was mine. She is mine." "No," Alina said, standing now. "I never was. You just used me to fight your own war." Tears welled in Gloria's eyes, but Alina didn't move toward her. Not this time. She turned to Marcus. "We have to call someone. There's a town about 20 miles east. We'll need help dragging him." Gloria stared at them like a stranger. "You're really leaving me?" Alina looked her dead in the eyes. "I left a long time ago." They walked away. They didn't run. They didn't look back. Hours later, a sheriff's deputy arrived. Dale was cuffed and loaded into a cruiser, half-conscious. Gloria didn't speak. She just sat on the porch with her hands folded in her lap, like a child who finally realized she wasn't in charge anymore. "And Alina?" She stood beside Marcus at the tree line, the cold wind brushing her hair back. "Do you think it's over?" she asked. No, Marcus said. But we've survived worse. They left the cabin that night, not in fear, but in choice. Two broken souls who weren't fixed but weren't caged anymore either. There was no fairy tale ending, no perfect romance. But there was something better. Freedom. And the power to choose what came next.